If you're listening to this inquiry, hopefully you have listened to and have a really good sense of the psychological level inquiry that came before this one. This inquiry will deepen and expand what we have worked on in the fourth fetter. And if you don't feel like you have some insight or clarity regarding that first stage of the fourth fetter, I would suggest that you work more with it before you go on to this inquiry. It is important that you're ready to inquire about wants on the non-dual level before you start doing it. If you're not ready, it won't really do anything for you. So really discern if you're ready for this, or if there's still a need to go deeper into the foundational fetters first. Take a moment and get comfortable. Settle in. Take a few deep breaths and fall into gravity. And get ready to look honestly and thoroughly into your assumed reality. Just like we did in the first inquiry, I would like for you to bring to mind something that you feel you want. It can be a small thing, like to go for a run, or a big thing, like changing your job. Do you still feel how life is going to be improved when you finally have whatever it is you want? What in your direct experience, sitting right here, right now, is giving you the feeling that something in your life is going to be improved, or can even be improved? How do you know that life actually will be better with this thing or event added to it? If you have been able to activate the feeling of contentment that is present in the moment, why does that insight go away and become replaced with the mind-created want? See where you are sitting right now in the present, without the object of your desire, and feel how you feel in and around the body. Take stock of your general mood. How does the body feel? Your feet, your bum, the back of your body, your jaw. Can you make a snapshot of your current state? Good. Now picture yourself in a very specific future moment when you are completely satisfied and fulfilled after having acquired the longed for thing. Again, take stock of what is currently being felt in the body and the mind, while still imagining that you have what you really, really want. And now see if you can find in your direct experience the link between these two states. So you have the state of dissatisfaction in your perception of reality right now, and at the same time the state of happiness and expansiveness in the projected future. How is it that you know that there will be any different experience when you get what you think you want? Can you find any way that this is known other than that it is a thought that was repeated over and over until it became a very solid belief every time you imagine your future with your want? Can you see into the future? Or is it all imagination about the future? Is that just a thought? Do you really know what is going to happen in the next minute or the next year? Do you feel confident in predicting winning lottery numbers? If not, that might be a clue to the limits of your predictive powers and how much trust you should place in your assumptions about how life will be for you some later date. So if you can't predict the future, how do you truly know that your fantasy about what will happen when you've got your want is true at all? Breathe. If you really look into it right now, do you see that all of your thoughts are like this? But for various reasons, some of them seem more believable or harder to question than others. Acknowledging is a good clue that you should be particularly suspicious about that type of thoughts. The more true and unquestionable those thoughts are, the more they should be questioned. There are some deep hooks into them, needing to be true, to keep you from having to question something about your worldview and at the core, your self-view. Now, instead of imagining the future and the implications on your life, we're going to move further and look into the belief itself. This can take a bit of a shift of perspective. If you feel like you're completely intertwined with the thoughts, then this can be quite difficult. That is also why this sort of inquiry is the most effective after having seen through the illusion of a separate thinking self, what we refer to as the first fetter. If you're not seen through the foundational fetters yet, I would recommend you to stop the inquiry right now and go back to the curriculum and the previous inquiry. The reason is that even with seeing through self, it can take a practice to pull yourself up from the maze that you're stuck in and gain that oversight you have from the fifth floor view, and from that non-judgmental place with curiosity, just observe the thoughts. Let's see if we can do that now together. Breathe and see if you can notice the thought with the same curious detachment as if it was a scene from a movie you're watching. To do this, it might help to take a few more deep breaths and allow any attachment to the experience to relax. It might feel a bit like an unhooking, or like you are shrugging off a cloak. But ultimately, it is a very gentle detaching from a thought that you will recognize when it happens, even though it normally feels different for everyone. Likewise, everyone is different regarding how thoughts show up for them. So you might see this belief of a better future as a visual image, or stream of visual images, or portraying the events yet to be seen. Or you might have auditory thoughts, hearing a discussion or maybe a monologue about the outcome of the acquisition. You might see it all written in text. Or you might have a combination of the three. Or maybe even something completely unique. How you think does not matter. What matters is your relationship to the thoughts and the detached curiosity you can use to approach the thoughts. So breathe deeply again. And now get back into the thoughts about how the thing you want will improve the future. Observe how the thoughts about your belief conclude that you know how the future can be improved. Looking into the conclusion that your situation will be able to improve in the future is the root of what your belief is about. Whether it's a new car, a new relationship, a baby, or a hot dog. There is an implication that something about your experience will be able to improve, and that this is the thing that has the power to make that happen. If I ask you, can anything ever improve? Notice the immediate onslaught of thoughts arguing that all the things in your life surely can be better than they are right now. But is that really true? In fact, at this moment, that is only a hypothetical belief. You could argue that you walk 10 miles back and forth to work every day, so a car would improve your life immensely. And on paper, that sounds perfectly reasonable. But we don't know if you will get the car and have an accident the first time you drive it and end up paralyzed for the rest of your life. I know this is an extreme example, but it is to point to the fact that we never, ever, ever know anything for certain. We do not know what the consequences will be of any action. But we enjoy the playground of the mind where we pick and choose and assume we can construct a perfect plan to get what we want. On top of that, we also construct a belief that this thing we want will for sure secure our utmost happiness and safety. And at the core of it, it will ensure our internal existence. But of course you know it's all nonsense. You see clearly that that is all just mind-created fantasies. And yet sometimes what we plan to do work out for a while. So we get cocky and convince ourselves that we actually can predict the future. But I would like for you to begin to notice how often your plans actually need to change. Or begin to notice how the plans sometimes get completely subverted by the tides of an unpredictable life. Breathe. Okay. Try to bring back the idea that something you want will be able to improve your life in the future. Now ask yourself, who exactly is it who is the one who is going to benefit in the future? Where is that you? Can you find that you right here? If you can't, isn't that you just another thought? Who exactly is the you who is going to be able to improve? If you have already seen through self, this might seem like an obvious question. But notice if there are still some subtle layers of impressions that seem to imply a timeline where some undefined things in some way is going to be benefiting from any of your current efforts. It's bizarre, isn't it? You know there's not a you, and yet there's a lingering belief that it matters that something needs to be in a certain way in the future, and that the non-you has any ability to shape that. It's really, really bizarre. If you're not seen through self yet, this is your call to look into your direct experience, to find what seems like a consistent, lasting, observing, acting self. For the purpose of this exercise, feel what feels like you right now. It might be somewhere in the body, or in your thoughts, or a combination of them. Pick your hand up and point to you. Where did you point? Feel into that spot and see what it feels like. Make a mental note of it Now see if you can break it down into either specific felt sensations or mental images or other types of thoughts. Does it persist or does it start to disperse a bit? Alright, let's go back to your belief. Think about how much better your life can be with that particular want. If you hear the thought as an audible sentence, does it sound like you're talking to someone? We often say, I'm talking to myself. This is so common that it's completely taken for granted and seems perfectly normal. But have you ever stopped to consider how perplexing that is? Who is talking and to whom? If there's a part of you who knows that you will be better off in the future with this want, why does it need to convince itself? Who is it trying to persuade? Do you see the duality inherent in that sort of self-talk? Again, it's something everyone does, but that does not mean that it isn't a fruitful ground for exploration. When you're explaining to yourself why you really need to have this want so that your life really will improve in the future, try to find who is hearing and receiving the thoughts. And if you're explaining to me, just know that I can't hear you. But that might not stop you from trying to explain. So who is hearing? Who is listening? Okay. Remember how a few moments ago I asked you to make a mental note of what it feels like to be you. I would like for you to check in with that now. Is that feeling of what it is to be you still there? Did that feeling change at all? Does it feel like you still are exactly the same person you were a few moments ago? Where did you tune in to find that out? Does it feel like that self has moved in time at all? Does it feel like you're currently living in the future? Where's the person who first tuned in to the sense of self? Can you find them now? Did they die? Did they disappear? So what is going to happen to this feeling of self in another few minutes? Breathe. Let's return to the belief again. Do you know how you first created and bought into this thought that what you want will improve something in the future? Did someone tell it to you? Did you intentionally decide that you need to create a new thought that was going to be the driver for your life? Are there any remnants of its origin, like the cosmic radiation of the Big Bang? Can you sense any history of the belief? Does it appear fresh and new spontaneously every time it comes up? Or does it have hooks into something old and familiar? The next time you become aware of it, see if you notice any tendrils creeping back into some findable past. Or does it simply arise as a thought, popping newly into existence and winking back moments later? Did you create the thought? Did you choose when it popped out? Can you actually initiate a thought? Or do you only become aware of it after it has arisen? Can you ever predict when or what the next thought will be? Here's a very fun exercise to prove this point. I want you to breathe deeply and pay attention to the space where the thoughts tend to appear. Now watch and wait. Be very vigilant and observing. I want you to think of 3 movies. Did they pop to mind? Did you see how they were chosen? Did it feel like you chose them? You might have heard the names of the movie appear or saw clips from them. You might even have heard yourself choosing a title and deciding for some other reason to pick a better title. But did you recognize that none of that was you? The names simply appeared, and even all of the seeming back and forth and decision making was automatically happening. Let's try it again. This time, think of 3 book titles. Did you notice anything different that time? Did you notice any difference between the thinker and the thought? Did there seem to be some separation now? At this point, we have seen that beliefs are nothing but thoughts, and thoughts are spontaneously, impersonally arising creations of the subconscious, and that they are in no way reliable in terms of their connection to the seemingly real world. So now let's look at the feeling of wanting. Pick something else that sounds good to you. Maybe food, sex, checking social media, watching TV, whatever makes you feel like you could go for some of that right now. Then get a clear image of the thing you want and feel what is happening in the body at this moment. Did something change? Is there any tension, buzzing, or perhaps something like a magnetic pull? Where exactly is it appearing? Get as clear on this as possible. Does this tension feel uncomfortable? Does it seem like you're in a dynamic place that wants to change? If so, this is the gap. The gap is a place where, by definition, it is uncomfortable for you to be. However, if you find it so uncomfortable that you cannot stay with the sensations, but instead springboard right into some reaction, you should probably try a less charged want to investigate first, to see if you can sit with this discomfort for a bit. Do you need to do something to distract yourself and stop feeling it? Do you need to escape from the gap? Or can you bear it for a little longer? Good. Now let's look for any connection from the initial thought about the want you would like to have right now and these sensations that you are feeling in the body. In your actual experience, not in your thoughts, but your actual experience right now. Can you find a direct connection between the thoughts of wants and the sensations you are feeling in the body? Is there a physical thread or a link or a trigger or a switch or anything else that could connect these 2 things, the thought and the physical sensation, in your actual experience? Great. Now continue, sitting in the gap, feeling the sensation that seems to be pulling you to do something. If you notice that the body's moving or fidgeting or thoughts are arising, you have jumped over the gap and are now reacting. This is what we assume to be aversion or not wanting. But we are investigating wanting right now. So go back to the dynamically icky sensation. And just like we looked for a link between the first thought and this bodily sensation. Now we're looking to see if there's any connection between this icky sensation and the need to have the cigarette or candy bar or whatever it is you wanted. Can you find again in the direct experience, not in the thought, if there's any reason to reach out for that wanted item? How would it in any way connect with or change this bodily sensation, other than it would just distract your attention away from feeling it? Really look for that connection, like you're looking for something you lost. Can you find anything? Not finding is key here. We do this exercise over and over with different cravings to realize that there's no reason that we absolutely need to have the wants just because a thought about it arises. While you're sitting in the gap, do you notice how diverting thoughts are in taking you out of the body? Do you lose touch with how it feels? Can you notice what the advantages are of going into thought and leaving the body multiple times throughout the day? This is how we're constantly bypassing the feelings in the body in order to keep from feeling those uncomfortable undercurrents that are constantly popping up and shaping your reactions and behaviors throughout your life. To see that there's no connection between thoughts and the necessity of action. Is the craving or want anything but another thought? Does that thought actually connect to anything at all in the world outside of your mental experience? We're almost done with this part, but not quite. That belief you have that you can and should improve or make your life better in the future, do you feel a sense of attachment to that belief? If I ask you to let go of your wants, to release the craving right now, do you feel a sense of resistance? What is that resistance like? Does it feel similar in some way to the icky sensation of sitting in the gap? If you find that there is an attachment to the thought of the want, just notice that it is serving a purpose for you, and that the reason why it is so difficult to let go of is because there is an assumption that it is there for your benefit. You have an assumption that without it, life is going out of control. So again, sit in the gap and ask yourself, can I be in a body where I release the belief that it is possible for me to improve my future? Can you just be with that without doing anything about it? Can you be in a body when the beliefs that you should be creating a more comfortable future for yourself are released? Can you be in a body where any thought about any wants are acknowledged to be completely baseless and untrue? Take a deep breath. Well done. We're about to finish, and I would like to recommend you to do this inquiry again and again before moving on to the next level. Take time in your everyday life to stop whenever you catch yourself in a want. Do this non-dual inquiry and look into if there's any connection from the thought about a future that can be improved and the bodily sensation that is being experienced right now. The more you practice inquiry in your everyday life, the more it will become an integrated part of you. The more you dismantle the content of a thought from your perceived reality, the more clearly will you see how things actually are. the more you look into how a want is just a diversion from what is, and nothing but a delusion of a fantasy future, the less potent the thought of a want will become. So I want you to take the last deep breath. Slowly open your eyes and shake your body.